This is Advisor 3.0, a show designed to help you as a financial advisor elevate your professional practice, transform your clients' lives, and take your business to the next level. I am Abraham Okusanya. Welcome to the show. Imagine training for years to climb a mountain. You sweat, you sacrifice, you push yourself, and then you reach the summit, but there's no view. Just fog, thin air, altitude sickness, and a strange sense of now what? That's what retirement can feel like when it's treated as a goal. That's according to my guest today, Dan Haylett, financial planner and author of The Retirement You Didn't See Coming. Dan, welcome back on the show.
Abraham, thank you so much. A pleasure to be back in person this time.
It's in person this time. Yeah. You know, it's been a few years since you've been. Yeah. And in that time, you've become an author. I see you speaking up and down the country, and I was speaking to someone the other day and they said to me, oh, it was great. We knew him when he was just Dan.
That's mad. Yeah.
No, congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the book.
Thank you. Yeah. I think if you spoke to any of my teachers at school, Dan Haylett author wouldn't be the thing they thought would happen, right? But so no, it's been amazing. Yeah,
you got the podcast as well. You know, it's great. The newsletter. Look, I mean, I was saying to you before we came on, I really underestimated this book, because I looked at the title, right? It says retirement, and I thought, I've read several books on retirement, and it kept going down on my list, on my pile of things to read. And, of course, in the run-up to this podcast, I thought, and I took it, by the way, I took it everywhere. I took it to America. I was in America recently. I took it to America and I said, I must read it on the plane. I didn't. It was by my bedside, in the hotel. I said, I didn't. But of course, in the run-up to this podcast, I had to start reading. And oh, my friend, this is really good stuff. I've been underlining this. One of your central case in the book, you have all these myths about retirement that people have, but one of your central points in the book is that, in effect, we've been missold a lie or a misconception about retirement. We've been sold, this idea that retirement is just a goal or is a destination, but it's not. Talk to me about that, really.
Yeah, I think, it's come from walking life, doing planning for these hundreds of clients that I've done over the last so many years. And you see them kind of coming into the office and you hear their stories about how they've, feel like they're climbing the mountain, climbing the stairs and wanting to reach the goal of retirement, the goal of, the number that they've put in front of their plan. It's, whether it was 500 grand, £1 million, whatever. And what then happens just really startled me. And one of the reasons why I really shifted the work that I do away from kind of number-based through to human-based. And it was that I've reached retirement and I've lived in it for 3 to 6 months and I'm thinking, I think I might go back to work. But now what? And it's almost that they've put so much energy in reaching the summit, reaching the goal, and no energy or thought into what happens next. And, they haven't thought about what they're retiring to. They've just focused on this kind of get to the thing and, everything will be fine thereafter. And I think, I looked at that and I was like, well, if these people put so much work and effort into building wealth, the sacrifices that you have to make to build wealth, and we then put a load of work into creating these plans, if they can't take advantage of the wealth, if they can't take advantage of their time because they're not figured out what they're going to, then we might as well just stop because it's not worth it, right? So, I think that to me is the central case I see in everybody, that there's too much focus on what they're retiring from and not enough understanding of the life that they want to build thereafter, how to take advantage of their time and their freedom. And really, I think that's probably where the central point of the book is. It's kind of, what are you retiring to? And everything, all the emotional baggage that comes with that.
And, do you see this as a fault, I want to say, almost, of the financial, services industry?
Yeah, it's that the narrative they push down people's throats, I think, a lot. And, the wider industry has every reason to push this down people's throats, right? Keep saving. It's that, and then they print these brochures with happy couples in matching white linen bounding down a beach, and they create this false narrative of what retirement is. It's not reality. And I do think it's because there's, every advert you see on telly from the product providers is kind of, number, hit your number, and all that. And I do think it's very much pushed down people's throats. And actually, I think it's influence from their parents and their peers and their colleagues, right? No one's going to turn around, I think, to them and go, by the way, this is an emotional roller coaster. They're going to turn around and talk about the numbers. And I hear that from clients a lot. I've had a chat with my colleague and they said, I need to be here. I've had a chat with my colleague and I should be invested like this. I remember my mum and dad saying, invest for a rainy day, and all of the, it's all the numbers-based narrative. And simply people don't give themselves enough time and space to understand that it's, much more of a human problem than it is a maths problem.
And so it's a human problem. What do we need to do differently? You talk in the book about, we love projections, we love planning, and we think that planning, the numbers will give us comfort, or security is the word you use.
Yeah.
But it maybe doesn't. What needs to change for us to refocus retirement planning on the human side of the equation?
Yeah, I think, simply to start with, it's an understanding of what you just said, right? I think it takes some humbleness for us as financial planning professionals probably to admit that all of our training that we've done is just a small slither of the pie, right? But it's an important slither. So if we just change it in our head to understand that the numbers are just part of the equation, and therefore, creating a good financial plan, a great financial plan does a really good job. It removes unnecessary financial fear, but that's kind of all it does. And therefore, if we want to ensure that our clients can live a happy life, can utilize the money that they've saved, and probably we've helped them save by being disciplined investors and, all the behavioral stuff that we talk to them about. If we want them to utilize that money and their time and their energy well, then we have to focus on the non-financial side of this. Because again, no matter how much money people have, they step away from work, they lose their identity, they don't know why they're pulling back the duvet in the morning, their relationships with their spouse and their children change, their structure disappears overnight, they have a very weird relationship with time, they struggle to spend money, and I've seen it because I used to do it. It was like, you've got more than enough money, why are you not spending it? You kind of, the frustration, and you have to realize that comes from a place of being a human. It comes from a place of emotion, and in the numbers, no matter how much you project Monte Carlo things or whatever, which sound way more fun to our clients than what it is, right? No matter how many times you project it, showing that their plans are, bulletproof, they simply can't unlock the ability to spend their money and their time because there's so much more going on that is wired into us as humans. So we have to touch on that. Otherwise, people will die with massive bank accounts and huge amounts of regret. And I'm sure many of us are not in this for that. So, and I had a number of clients at the start of when I was when I started doing this that had those moments, and it really, as I said earlier, it really made me go, I don't want them to have regret. I don't want them to feel like going back to work. I don't want them to feel like they've got no purpose. How can we start exploring those conversations? How can we start to bring that to life for people? Because I do think it is the most fundamental part. You know, as I said, we know people that retired with a great pension fund. They're never going to run out of money, yet they really struggle with this part of life.
So what have you found works? What type of conversation or strategies have you found works with clients in turning that switch on?
Yeah, so I think, again, simply bringing it up as an awareness point is it is transformational for some people, right? But what I will say is that part of my mission around the podcast and the newsletter and the book was to educate people. And I definitely, and I don't know whether this is the right term, but I definitely see myself as an educator, because what this work is doing, and I'm getting the feedback all of the time from existing clients and new clients, is it's opening their eyes. You know, I'm not having therapy sessions with them in the office.
Right.
I am posing them questions in my newsletter. They're reading the book and they're kind of, something's hitting them bang in the face and going, oh, that's really interesting. They send me an email and say, Dan, can we elaborate on that point next time that we chat? They've listened to some podcast episodes. The education is so important. And I think because this is such a deeply personal human thing, the most success I've seen with people isn't necessarily on one-to-one conversations. It's the content they're listening to, the things they're reading. And so from that, I've developed some worksheets, some workbooks and things, which you then kind of go, do you know what would be really interesting? Take this particular worksheet on purpose home with you and have a think about that. And instead of asking them in this kind of bit of environment that they feel a bit twitchy on, they go home, they think about it, they answer the questions, they send it to me with some comments and go, what do you think about this? So opening up the conversation, getting them to think about this alongside their finances, because, you know, money's the emotional lightning rod that kind of links all of this together a little bit. But that's where I've had the most success. It's, you know, you bring awareness to these topics and then you let them think, you let them digest. And again, I think like all good coaching and education, you need the person that you're working with to kind of come to the conclusion. Right. I'm not going to tell them how they should think. I'm not going to tell people what their identity should be. I just need to provide listening and space and thoughts and good questions. And I get a lot of people to do some work on flip charts and stuff and get them to draw stuff out, get it to be a little bit more creative. And so that's the strategy that I've used. It's really opened up these conversations. And a lot of the time they're coming to what I believe would be the right conclusion for them. Which is
interesting. It's almost like a shift from how we think of financial planning, which is that based on what you said, some of the most profound, results don't happen in the planning room, don't happen in the annual planning meeting or annual reviews or whatever you call it. It happens outside of it.
Absolutely. And I think, to me, the future of financial planning is not a one and done meeting. I think the future of financial planning, to me, is a constant education stream to our clients with an ability for them to ask questions of us. As and when they feel that moment, right? Because again, to me, this is about feelings. How do they feel? Certain things will happen during the year where they feel a certain thing and they will either want to go back to something you've written or you've recorded, or they want to reach out to you to speak about that thing. And I think the best work is done outside of those. Again, some of the best meetings I've done is when someone phones up and goes, I'm feeling a bit like this. And you go, right, you're going to come in, or should we grab a Teams meeting? And you have the best conversation because it's in the moment. It's fresh. And so I think that's how it evolves. I think we almost see the death of annual forward planning meetings over the next 3 to 5 years, because, again, this should be a consistent service provided to them when they need it. And I think that becomes just a regulatory kind of tick box.
Yeah, well, yeah, which is what I was going to ask is, someone listening to this might say, oh, well, Dan, it's hard for you to say you've done the thinking, you've written a book, you've got a podcast, you've got all your little sketches, you've got workbooks for clients, but I haven't. I'm just a financial planner. How am I supposed to create this type of, content that spark conversation, educational content or resources that spark conversations with clients that makes the thinking happen? How am I supposed to do all of that stuff?
It's a great question. I mean, I think you're gonna want to have to do it. Like you're gonna have to want to do it, I should say. But it starts small, right? I mean, again, I'm kind of 3.5, 4 years in the making of all of this stuff, and it started with an idea. It started with some videos. It started with. So to me, I mean, people have asked me a very similar question before, and it's like, be yourself, get on video, record some things, and send it out to people, and don't be afraid to touch base weekly with your clients. I think people think, I shouldn't disturb them and all of this stuff, but I think most financial planners understand the crucial role they play in their clients' lives, and therefore they want to hear from us, and I think they love hearing from us, and so I think this is about understanding them, understanding what's important to them, and just drip feeding out content to them. To create content now is as easy as it's ever been. To publish content, to record a audio and edit the audio is the barriers to entry. Although this is lovely here, right? But the barriers to entry to do this stuff, you don't need thousands of pounds and loads of equipment. And I do think it's where we need to take this. And and the work that I've done is just a culmination of the meetings that I've had with clients, right? And I think the beauty is now we record our meetings. Probably a lot of us will record the meetings on software. We've got so much rich content just sitting in the transcriptions of those meetings. Go back and review them and see what questions they're asking and create content for that. I mean, and I would say it's a really liberating experience. I think I've become a better financial planner, a much better communicator by starting this process to create the content, because it kind of solidifies your thoughts and you've got somewhere and an outlet to put it.
Yeah, and one of the things that you've done really well in the book is like you have these stories of people. I mean, there's hardly any page. I know you have changed the names and, so it's not breaching any data or whatever, data protection thing or whatever. But, there's hardly any page that doesn't have some story about Julian. Julian is the client that walks throughout the book, but you have other stories of people or other people in the book.
That comes back to my thing that human beings are storytellers. And I think, and it's not necessarily 100% correct when we talk about left brain, right brain. But we do know that numbers and stories are very different in terms of how we react to them and what they do to us. And we also know that, that stories create emotion that make people stand up and take action. Numbers don't. And so actually the human brain distrusts numbers. It's very skeptical. It's on the side of the brain that is more analytical, distrusts them, more skeptical, doesn't understand them. Whereas if you tell a story, it becomes more relatable, more believable, and people take action. So I talk about narrative over numbers, and that's why I wanted to thread stories. That's why we should thread stories in all of the planning work that we do. Because if we want a client to take action, if we want them to understand a concept, then we need to make it into a story. And in fact, there has a number of the little stories in there are, the names have changed, but the ones on the left side in the little grey boxes, they're real people, real names, permission to use their names. And they're 3 real clients. I interviewed them on the podcast, and I said to them, I want to take the transcription of the podcast. I want to take the transcription from the notes of the meetings that we've had. Would you be happy for me to share this story in the book? And they were like, absolutely. And so, yeah, I think, we've all got those stories, right? If we want to start creating content, we've all got those stories that we could get out there, and it's so relatable to people.
So if, as you said, retirement isn't just about numbers and it isn't a goal, what is it about?
It's a transition. It's a new phase of life. I think it's very hard to define right now because I think it's moved significantly very quickly in terms of what it means to people. Retirement, as you know, is 110 years old.
Yeah,
right?
it's a concept. It's a 100-year-old concept.
It's a man-made concept that was originally invented to get old people out of factories because they couldn't work and be productive anymore, to be replaced with younger people. And then they realised that, well, these old people can't just go on the street, so we better give them some sort of, it was Bismarck, right? Some sort of pension at 65. Well, that was great, but they left at 63 and died at 64, so hardly any of them got a pension.
What was actually Bismarck was trying to use it to get rid of his competitors.
That's exactly that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think the thing is that wiring is still part of the problem. We are still taking this kind of retire from a factory mentality because we're knackered and we're old and we can't work anymore into a modern day world when the majority of us are knowledge workers. And the majority of us actually are probably reaching peak knowledge and peak wisdom at the time that we think that we're starting to withdraw from the work that we do. So it's a new phase of life. I think people now, are more aspirational. They want to do more. I think that the money situation is more flexible for them, but that creates more problems, right? Defined contribution pensions create more issues for people in retirement. So the money is much more of a problem it will be for me than my grandparents. Me and my grandparents had a final salary pension. They got what they got and they lived to that. And they were, I think they were happier, right? Because they kind of knew what they had. And so the modern day kind of retirement piece now, retirement is a busted concept, right? It's completely defunct in the way that we think it is. And so this is now making sure that people can do more of the things they love, less of the things they don't, but understand what work gives them that isn't financial, understand that they've got an opportunity and a window to do more things that they really like. And it's about taking advantage of that. So, this is, to me, I think, if I think of the second half of life, as you get into your mid-50s, I think this is probably what I would say is the most exciting phase of life. This is the phase where you've got accumulated wisdom, some accumulated money, time and health on your side. You've got, you're in alignment over most things that should be in place to allow you to live the life that you want, that you've probably never had in your life. So that to me is what a modern day retirement is. It's the ability to live life on your terms, and it's not about retreating. It's about doing more of the things that you love.
I like that. I really like that. And I like these quotes in the book. One of the illusions that you said in the book is, there's this illusion that freedom is the ultimate outcome. Then you quoted Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. I read it earlier this year. I read it again. I really like, but you quoted and you said, what man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal. I love that.
Yeah. And I think it's recognizing what we as human beings are and what we as human beings need in order to live a fulfilling life. And I do think the modern world has kind of made us lose that a bit. And I think we believe that we want freedom, but freedom without structure is just kind of like chaos in pajamas. Right? It's kind of like we need structure. And as Viktor Frankl quite rightly says, if you look at there's many books that quote about human beings need struggle in order to feel like they're progressing. This concept of enough, I think, is a little bit misguided, because enough feels like it's a stop, whereas human beings are wired to move forward, right? There's times of enough and more that we need, and we need more, and we want to make sure we're contributing, and I think that's the bit for me. People go, "Oh, I want freedom. I just want 3 days." But if you don't have structure, if you don't have meaning, then your days will just be beige nothingness, and it won't do you any good. And I do think there is a big link between people retiring early and not doing this work, and also the onset of kind of cognitive decline that we're seeing in people, right? It's kind of, I saw dementia's now overtaken heart disease as the number one killer in people over 65 or over 70. And I think, what we need to understand is that you can't just have nothing to do. We need structure, we need struggle, we need that ability to feel like we are contributing to our tribe, we're moving forward, we're not settling, just basic kind of caveman and cavewoman stuff that is still ingrained in us as human beings. And my fear is that we don't carry that forward into retirement, because people think, again, once I've hit the number, everything will kind of come into place. I talk about clarity as one of the myths as well. And it's, people just think when I get there, everything will be clear. And it's like, well, that's not how it works, right? You need to put the work in to have clarity. Not, clarity doesn't come first. It comes after the other stuff that you have to put in. So I think that's a big danger for me.
I like this, your phrasing, and I have actually not really thought about it this way, that in retirement, or we should stop using that word, but like in this phase of life, you now have wisdom that you didn't have when you were 16. So the way I think about, the phase that you are, let's say in your 20s and 30s, maybe even 40s, is that the reason that work is meaningful for people, or most people go to work, is that you want to contribute and you need money to live on, right?
Yep.
You need to make money, and you, of course, want to contribute.
Yeah.
The difference in my mind, as far as this phase that we call retirement is concerned, is you now have money. You now have enough financial freedom that it doesn't weigh heavily in your decision-making about your choice of how you contribute. I haven't thought about it in a way that says, now you have wisdom that maybe you didn't have when you were in your 30s, and for me, in your 40s. Now you have wisdom. Now you've experimented and seen enough stuff to know what you like and don't like. So take that capital of wisdom and reinvest it to make contributions in a different or meaningful way.
Absolutely. I recorded a video probably 18 months ago, and I can't remember what I said, so hopefully people don't look at the video. It went something like this. I said, 3 phases of life effectively, right? But as a child, you have freedom without wisdom. Right, so you're free, but you don't really know. Actually, if according to my daughters, they know everything. Right, so I don't know whether that's true, but you have freedom without wisdom. And then in your working career, I would say, and that you are, you're accumulating knowledge and wisdom, but you're probably somewhat shackled, right, to kind of the corporate life.
Yeah.
And then you get to the second half of your life, the third phase. You now have wisdom and knowledge with freedom.
Yeah.
And I talk about being childlike again. So you're now childlike in your freedom, because now financially you should be in a position, hopefully, that allows you to feel like you can make choices independent of money. And again, this isn't about being like millionaires and rich and all of that stuff. Most people overestimate the amount of money that they need. And Julian was a key example of that. And so, but you have wisdom, accumulated wisdom, knowledge about what you love and don't love, as you said. And now you're in such a wonderful position to use that, because you're at a point in life where, you've got this window, wisdom, knowledge, freedom, your knees are okay, your hips are all right, your health is on your side. Because again, I look at that data as well, Abraham. I look at the health, the health span versus lifespan. And there is a window there. Yes, we are living longer, but we're not healthy,
for longer.
For longer. In fact, I read some data the other day that suggests that gap has widened quite a bit over the last 15 years. In that, we in this country have got very good at kind of keeping people alive, but it doesn't mean they're healthier longer. Right? And so it's we have to help people take advantage of, of what they've put into getting to this point in their life. And if you think about capital and how we want to spend that capital, money, time, energy, and wisdom is kind of what I would say is the capital that we want to expend in the second half of life. And we need to be expending it very well and carefully.
Let's talk about purpose. You talk about this, identity is one thing that you talk about, exploring it, but purpose. What now when people get to that point where there is now, financial freedom, they no longer have to show up in an office. How do you, rediscover purpose for that third phase of life?
Yeah, I think it's, and my thinking about this has been influenced by a number of people. And the mistake that people make about purpose, I believe, is that they hear the word purpose and they think of change the world type things. So this, you don't
That's
have...
what I think.
You do, right? And I think you don't have to, set up a foundation to save the sea turtles. I mean, it might be a wonderful thing to do, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to change the entire face of financial services in the UK, but you can choose to do it if you want it, right? But for a lot of people, I think they get put off by the purpose thing. And Jordan Grummett, who wrote a great book called The Purpose Code, who I've become good friends with, he talks about big P purpose and little p purpose, and how actually big P purpose puts people off and they make the wrong choices and they go down the wrong path. This is about understanding fundamentally those kind of smaller purposes. And if you start there, some people might get to change the world, but very, very, very few people kind of do the big purpose stuff. And so if we can realise that our purpose might be to teach our grandchildren to play golf, our purpose might be to mentor two young professionals, giving back some of your knowledge and doing that once or twice, 1 or 2 days a month. Our purpose might be to be a better granddad, to learn to play music, to, all these things. And I've got clients, I've asked questions of clients about this, and a lot of them, they answer it with the most foundational stuff. I get great amount of purpose in being able to relax with my wife on a Sunday afternoon over a bottle of wine. Like that's just it doesn't sound like that's purposeful, but it to them it is, right? So I would say that the mistake people make is that they go too big on this because they feel like their work has delivered purpose, which is obviously this massive thing, and they've got to replace that. And quite simply, this is finding out stuff that is important to you and having vigor to pull back the duvet to want to go and do that, when you've got freedom on your side. And I think for most people, it becomes quite small and foundational, but really impactful and meaningful to them.
So someone might say, we are financial planners. It's in the title. We can do your financial plan. We can create you a plan. We can model the plan. We can think about all the financial things. Maybe we can ask you a few more personal questions just to, again, do the financial bit. You're now telling us, Dan, that we need to really double down on this human aspect. We need to help prepare our client for all of these human real issues, messy issues. I don't want to use the word soft because they are actually the hard issues. Why is this our job?
Two things, really. I think because our clients will not talk about this to anyone else. So, we are in a privileged position, I think, where our clients will spill their beans, parts of their life that they wouldn't, because money is so emotive. Money is often a starting point, but nowhere near the end point or the middle of these conversations, right? They think it's a money problem, but deep down it isn't. So they come to us because they think it's a money problem. And yet, even without asking good questions, our clients will still think, I think, spill information to us that we should be able to work with and absorb. So I think we have a duty based on that to be able to work with them on that. But also, if I may be controversial for a second, I think what you just described in terms of financial planning, very, very soon will be done in about 30 seconds with 2 clicks of a button. So I think financial planning in general is a commodity waiting to be commoditized. The human element of it, how you interpret it, how you communicate it, how you deliver it, how people absorb it, how people react to it, is where we need to go with this. And tax optimizing a financial plan that now can take us hours will take seconds soon, right? It's kind of a pattern. It's a number pattern thing, as you know. So for me, this is about understanding what our role is in the future, and actually where our most critical role is now. And as I said, financial planning will remove financial fear. That's a critical job, and people can't do that themselves, right? Because again, it's full of biases that you'll have. So they need independent people to look at that. But the most critical element, particularly for the work I do in retirement, is to make sure they can enjoy their money and enjoy their life and understand all of the human elements that get in the way of their ability to do that. And I don't just want to keep having forward planning meetings where I'm saying, you're never going to run out of money, Mr. Client, go spend some more. That doesn't feel like a great use of anyone's time. You need to dig into why, you need to understand the hows and the whats and be able to unlock this thing and get them to kind of really live the life that they want to do. And that takes some deeper work. Listen, it's not for everyone, right? Some financial planners will go and find out, like, I don't want to do that work. And that's fine. Everyone has a choice in this. And I might be wrong, but my belief is that this is where I add the most value, where I love doing the work and where I think we need to go going forward if we want to stay relevant and be able to impact more people in the future.
And you continue to see this as a value proposition that is worthy of paying for as part of the financial plan, or on its own as a separate thing. I don't know why you would do it separately, but
So it's really interesting because through the work that I've done, I've been contacted by many retirement coaches, right? And I don't know why I've done that. That's bad of me. But retirement coaches, right? Who And they're going, and I've looked at their stuff and we've had great conversations and they seem to do great work.
Yeah.
Yet they come to me going, like, the money thing is a real big part of this and I can't go anywhere near it.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And then, so then I go, and then I think if I just put a pure money hat on, I'll go, well, I'm talking about the money, which is now actually giving me a clue into their emotional psyche.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think you can have one without the other.
I agree.
I don't think you can, if you kind of go, well, I do retirement coaching, and they go, that's great. Part of the biggest issue I have is spending my money and how it's invested and I don't like the fact that all the weight of the money's on my shoulders. And what about an annuity? And these retirement coaches go, all right. So do you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Because I think it's so interwound into this. So again, I see the future of retirement planning as holistic but a whole service that encompasses, money from a pure maths point of view, from a behavioural point of view, and from an emotional point of view, linking into the human being and how they're going to spend it and use it and how they relate to it. And I think that has to be linked in. It has to be linked together. So I see it as the service going forward. I really do. Yeah,
I have to say I agree. Maybe I am just, speaking to you're just confirming my biases, but I had David Hole on the podcast a while back. He's ex-financial planner and he's now gone down this direction of, just coaching without the financial plan, but I still see the future being that we do the financial plan and we do the human plan, whatever that might look like. And just the way that you see financial plan without the human plan as kind of being incomplete and maybe slightly hollow, I do see doing the human plan without the financial plan as being incomplete.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think Mitch Anthony said great, when life goes in transition, money goes in motion. I think he says that. And that's true, right? Some of our biggest life events, in fact, I think you could probably say all of our biggest life events have a money side to them.
Have some money
kids and moving and...
Tell me about kids, but...
Yeah, exactly. But, like death and retirement and... There's money there's huge amounts of money implications to them that wire themselves into our gut and our brain, that people need to have the confidence that the person they're speaking to has the ability to interpret both, right? And that's not my fear, but I just think one of the pitfalls of retirement coaching. Because I've worked with clients before where they've gone, my work provided some retirement coaching, and I'd done this retirement coaching and it didn't really, fulfill it because I couldn't talk about the money, and I understood what they're saying, and yet it feels like you've incorporated the best of both worlds, which is exactly kind of what I needed. Because for some people, you do at certain points need to give more airtime to the numbers, right? And at some times you need to forget about the numbers and give more airtime to them as humans. And we need the ability to be able to do that. I just think what we need to understand is the way that we deliver and construct and do that just changes over time. And we just need to get better at helping our clients be able to make that transition in a world that's ever changing, and how they can, as I said, use their money for what exactly they want to use it for, with confidence, with courage, and that just all plays into us as human beings. So we need to make sure we're knitting the two together.
Yeah, cool stuff. Look, I want to try and wrap this up, but I have one question, because we'll get kicked out. But I have one question for you. So, what's next for you? And I'll say why I asked that question. You've written the book. You've got a really good and growing podcast. People listening to you. Got the newsletter. you're speaking at several conferences in this country and abroad. You've been to South Africa. I follow you. I'm stalking you on social media, and I always feel like you will. You're constantly being pulled out of, client one-to-one client relationship to this great, fantastic, possibly even more rewarding work, touching, thousands and thousands of people. What's next?
I don't know, is the answer. No, look, I think, we talked about purpose, right? And I think when you start finding your purpose, actually, I think your purpose starts finding you a little bit. And I love working with clients, right? And I don't ever not see myself in communication with clients. But I do see myself being someone who can help more people. Whether that is the ability to grow a business and help other financial planners in the work that they do, to serve more people. So, get people more on the human side, and through the processes that I go through with clients and how I interact and communicate and work with them, through education, and that can take different forms. I think there's a definitely a thirst for kind of courses and, I think to really start to educate people about the money and human side of retirement, and that can only help the growth, hopefully, of the business. So, listen, I don't know, but what I do know is that the core impact that I want to have remains the same. But I think it's very hard to properly grow and scale a financial planning business that does this work. I'm not saying it's impossible. And so therefore, I think if it's going to be something that I want to impact as many people as possible, then I want to make sure I'm getting that stuff out there to them. Listen, I don't know what it looks like. I love speaking. I love doing the podcast. The feedback that you get from people just makes you want to keep going. But I am thinking of what a financial planning business of the future looks like, and I think it needs someone like me to be out there educating, and the ability to be able to provide a framework for the clients of the future to want to come in and work with, so we can impact more people. So, I think I would love to say I've got a grand plan, but we'll see where it goes.
Fantastic. I am really, you have me on the edge of my seat. I'm really looking forward to how this unfolds, how what difference you make out there. Look, Dan, it's been incredible having this chat with you. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for coming on the pod.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and anytime. Love talking to you.
That's a wrap on today's show. Massive thanks to my production crew, especially Jake Osha, Melissa Canham, and the entire team. And of course, to our sponsor, Timeline, the market-leading provider of integrated planning technology and model portfolio service to advisors. I do hope you've enjoyed today's show. Head over to Apple Podcast and give us your review there. Until next time, goodbye.